Hey, what's going on, everybody? Matt Holmes here with TackWads.com, coming to you with a special exclusive interview with ex-Delta Force operator Dale Comstock. It's been kind of a trick for us to get it down because I know he's been all over China, teaching, doing all this stuff in family life. So finally, we got him here for you guys. I'm excited. His book, American Badass, is awesome. I loved it. I pretty much read it in a day, and it kind of explains what Dale is, you know, what movies and everything's made up is what he's done, and also just a great guy and, you know, how to kind of live your life. So thanks for taking the time, Dale.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here. So you want me to go ahead and tell you a little bit?
Let's kind of go in. You know, we're Dale and I talked briefly before. You know, he's going to kind of go into some of his background. For those of you that don't know Dale, and kind of how I said he's the guy that movies and stories and stuff are made of, I'll kind of it's true, and I'll let him kind of get into that and his start of the career in the military up to everything he's done and where he's at now.
Sure. So yeah, it's kind of it's very convoluted, so to speak. But so basically, I grew up in the Army. My father was in the Army for 20 years. And so I was very used to the Army life and that culture. And then right when he retired, I was starting to graduate high school, and I decided that's what I wanted to do as well. I wanted to go in the military. So I ended up joining the Army. I started out in the 82nd Airborne Division. I was in an infantry company. Then I was one of the members of the 82nd Alert Platoon back in 1983 when they started that concept again, which today is now LRS. And then after my first enlistment, after my first 4-year enlistment, at the age of 22, I was like, okay, what do I do? Do I get out? Do I stay in? And I was married at the time, and I had my first daughter. Didn't have a high school. I had a high school education, but nothing else. No real skill sets for the real world, so to speak. And so and then I just happened to get a letter at the same time from Delta saying that I was qualified to at least go through their initial pre-screening to see if I was qualified to go through their selection and assessment program. So I did, and I made that choice. I'll re-enlist, and I'm going to try out for the unit, and I did. And ultimately, I made it to the unit, to Delta. I was 23. And I was at that time one of the youngest operators to ever make it there, when the average age was about 33. And I really didn't have the military skill sets or background that most of those guys had. I wasn't a Ranger. I wasn't a Green Beret. And just an 82nd grunt. And but it worked out for me. So I ended up there. And then while I was in the unit, I had the opportunity to go to the Q course, and I became a light and heavy weapons expert with Special Forces. I went back to the unit, and then ultimately in 1996, I went to 3rd Special Forces Group, and I had an A team there. We were actually a permissive Halo team, and what we would call a rucksack team. So we did our conventional Special Forces mission, but we also did high altitude low opening and high altitude high opening parachute jumps. I was also a water infiltration team, so we did a lot of stuff with boats and surface swimming and things like that. We actually had a pretty interesting team because we also had the first, what they call the GMVs, which are the ground mobility vehicles, or some people know them as the DUMVs, the desert mobility vehicles. When they came out, 3rd group got their issue of vehicles, and I got the first set and started developing the SOPs for those. So we kind of did a lot of different things because most Special Forces teams are very specialized. You know, they're either a scuba team, or they're a Halo team, or they're a rucksack team. And my team, we were a water team, we were a desert mobility team, you know, we were a regular rucksack team, or a Halo team. So we kind of got to do a little bit of everything. And we were a Portuguese speaking team. So I did that, and then ended up retiring right at 2001. And then I started my own security company pre 9/11, which I was in the right place at the right time. And I started getting involved in the nuclear security realm. And at one point, I finally was pretty much dominated the industry, didn't have any real competitors. And I started servicing all the nuclear power plants across the United States. I hired a lot of contractors, and most of the guys were actually active duty military guys that would take leave to come work for me. And other guys were already out of the military. So, you know, I kind of kept it all in the family as I was doing this type of work. Then I also got an opportunity to work for the government as a paramilitary contractor, and I was able to keep my company, which I ultimately sold that in 2004 to G4S. Actually bought the company, and then I started becoming an independent contractor over the years. and I started another company several years ago, basically a virtual company, and it's what I was doing business as. And I ended up selling that company about 3 years ago to another company, and I started working for them, basically running my company under their umbrella. And since that time, I don't work for them anymore. I've been working as an independent contractor still. And for the last almost 8 months, I've been working in Hong Kong as a bodyguard, running a detail over there for a very affluent Chinese businessman. And I just found out yesterday that I won't be doing that anymore. I'm going to actually be doing something else. So I kind of all over the map, do a lot of different things. I teach. I used to teach for Henley Putnam University, and I gave that up back in January. Just I can't teach and do all these other things at the same time. It's just a full plate. But in some, that's kind of my career path that I went down. And then all the Hollywood stuff that you mentioned earlier. I got discovered. Actually, I got approached years ago, probably about 4 years ago now, by Discovery Channel. It was asking me if I was interested in doing their a reality show called One Man Army. So I went through the process, made it through, got selected, was on the show. Some people might remember seeing me on there. Basically, I got ousted by my 3 competitors right away. I guess they knew if they wanted to be a competition, they had to get rid of me. But I did well, and it was a good show. And because of that, NBC saw me and approached me, go, hey, we really loved you on this show. Would you be willing to be on NBC Stars and Stripes? And so I ended up on that show, being partnered with Terry Crews. And since then, things have just kind of kept rolling. I was approached by another group, became their poster boy for their production company, which I now own part of. And then I've done other TV shows. The recent one I did I was on 2 episodes of Legit on FX. I just did some stunts for The Librarians, which hasn't been, it's not out yet, but it'll be out this fall with Christian Kane. Done a lot of radio shows, so I've been getting involved in a lot of things. I wrote my book a year ago, and it's been out. It's doing well, American Badass. And I'm still actually, in fact, the people I just got the phone with, I'm actually doing a survival prepper DVD series next month. They'll be coming to my home to film it. And of course, I'll be part of that whole process. And again, you'll see me out there in DVD land doing survival prepper stuff. I'm going out to LA to make another movie. The first week of September, I'm also doing the firearms seminar, and my wife and I are attending the Latino Festival, and that's the first 2 weeks of September. So, so a lot of stuff going on. I also was approached by another network to host a TV show, and I'm waiting to see what the outcome on that is as well. I just interviewed for that last week, and so I'm in a pipeline potentially to be a host for another TV show down the road. So that's kind of who I am. That's what I've done. That's what I'm doing. And every day is a new experience, a new beginning. And and so it's been interesting to say the least.
Yeah, and it's awesome, with reading your book and stuff too, because a lot of people hear that and be like, wow, like how does he get all of that in?
Yeah,
because it's kind of been nonstop with everything since you enlisted. Being so young, it's been kind of just one thing after another. And then you and I talked about it, but, we didn't bring up now is during all of that too, you got a PhD.
Right.
So yeah, and that was while you were in with a high operation load, all this stuff. So it's kind of plays into a lot with your philosophy. It's just really, there's, me reading your book, going over it and stuff of just, there's no limit.
Right.
It is mental and just pushing yourself and having that drive and that goal to do everything you've done and what you're doing now, and still having your family and traveling and being away and coming back and doing all this stuff. It's very, it's impressive and it's inspiring to myself, and I know a lot of other people.
Yeah, it's it's true. So I got my master's degree. Actually, when I joined the Army, I had a high school education. Not very good one. I did very well, very poor in high school, and I was lucky to even graduate. But I promised my dad really wanted me to go to college, and I've said this before, in other interviews. Nobody in my family has ever had a college degree, and my family on both sides has been very poor. My dad had 11th grade education, my mom had a 9th grade education, and and I just, my father would work really hard to put me to college, but I just couldn't do that. One, I wasn't interested in school anymore, and two, I really wanted to be a soldier, and three, I didn't want to put the burden on him, to support me through school. But I did promise him that I would get my college degree while I was in the Army, and I did. So I got my bachelor's degree initially, and then I finally got my master's degree in business and organizational security management before I retired. And I did all this while basically being in special operations, kicking in doors and humping a rucksack. And when I hear guys say, "Oh, I can't go to college, I can't do this because I'm always deployed, I'm always doing this," and I'll just throw the BS flag on that one, because I used to actually take my books with me in the field. And if I got a chance to study in the field, I did. Every opportunity I had, I took that opportunity to study. During my lunch break, instead of going and hang out with the boys for lunch, I'd go to a little restaurant, get a corner, get some food, sit there, start studying, read my books, take my notes. I tried not to take time away from my family by going to school, because I worked all day. So what I would do is, once everybody went to sleep at night, I got back up, I'd go out in the kitchen, sit down, crack books, and start studying and work on my schoolwork. And the interesting is, I actually, at that time, when I was getting my master's degree and my bachelor's degree, but I was actually boxing professionally while in the Army on the side. And so, I was trained to do that. I was a soldier on a Green Beret team, as a team sergeant. I'm trying to get a college education. And at that time I had a wife and 3 kids. And those are just some of the things I had to do, and now I'm trying to get a college education, a master's degree. So it comes down to time management, discipline, and kind of basically, organizing your thoughts and your battle plan, so to speak. How you're going to knock all this out, and do all the things that you want to do. And I did. So I worked on my doctorate while working for the government. And the reason I did, I have a strong, interest in natural health, alternative medicine, for my own benefit and my own knowledge. And I also saw that as a paradigm, as a wave of the future. And I knew the wars were going to end someday. There's going to be a lot of guys walking around, unemployed, a lot of contractors. And so having a vision, I said, well, I think alternative medicine is a good field to get into down the road, because people are sick and tired of, allopathic medicine, today's medicine. They want, they don't want all the drugs. They don't want all the surgeries, they want all the parts cut out. They want to live naturally, And so I decided to pursue a doctorate in that. And I did that all while I was overseas. Again, operationally, when I came off an operation, or if I didn't have anything to do, because let's face it, when you're in an FOB somewhere in some austere location around the world, and you're not out chasing bad guys, you got 2 other things you can do. You can go to sleep, watch TV, or go to the gym, And so I always went to the gym, and then the rest of the time I studied. And so I did all my coursework. I did it all there. And then when I came back to the States, I did all the testing and all the other stuff I needed to do for that particular module. And then I would go back, order the next round, and continue to do that. So I ended up knocking it out. And, not that I do much with that particular degree. It's really for my own knowledge and self-improvement. But it comes back to time management, and, everybody's got their own life and they can do what they want to do. I was the guy that originally, back in the early days when computers started coming out, and they started making computer games, I got caught up in that whole mode. I get on the computer early in the evening and play a little game, and before I know it, it's 4 o'clock in the morning. I go, man, I wasted all that time playing these stupid games, And I realized very soon that, that could be a huge waste of my time and my life. And instead of doing something like that, I could do something productive. So I put all that stuff down and focused on self-improvement. And I look today at guys that, they spend a lot of time playing Xbox or all these other games, that at the end of the day, it's like, okay, that's okay if that's all you want to do and you're having a good time. But if you're looking to improve your station in life and be more and do more, then maybe you ought to go, is it really worth spending all this time and energy on this thing that's not going to do anything for me, when I could be actually spending all this time and energy on, either my family or my job or my education to be in a better place. So, yeah, that's what it comes all down to is, for me, was time management, setting goals. And I did set goals, and I also set benchmarks. At certain points I wanted to have this accomplished, like schoolwork, for example. It took that discipline, and that kept me on the straight and narrow, and kept me dialed in on my end state. So Yeah, I do a lot of stuff, and it doesn't come without a cost. For the most part, I've done everything I wanted to do. And I do travel a lot. And it's just part of what I have to do. It's my job. Unfortunately, I don't have a 9-to-5 job in office, and nor would I be happy with something like that. And my wife knows it. My ex-wives know it. So, it is what it is. And it is hard. It's hard maintaining your family life. And and I wouldn't sit here and lie to you and go, we got the perfect marriage, because it takes work. That's the other thing, is just like everything else I've had to do, it requires focus, dedication, and work. You constantly got to work at it, and so don't let everybody out there go, I'm just a lucky guy and life is perfect because everything fell in place, in the right way. And in fact, it's not. I've got to create my reality. Is what it comes down to. It doesn't happen for me. I've got to create it, and create everything: my family life, my professional life, my personal life. All that takes work, and kind of like sowing a garden and taking care of it. Got to put out
a continual effort of,
right.
Whether it's the gym, you're going to always have to keep going, or
Right.
guys that say with the regiment, the easy thing's getting in, the hard part staying in, or same thing with Delta Forces.
Yeah.
You've talked about where there were guys that got kicked out. Like, you got to prove to be there. I remember it was something that you mentioned in your book, right? Where when you went through like your last kind of interview with the commander and saying like, you're going to prove yourself every day that you deserve to be there.
Right. Yeah. Basically what he told me was that when I walked across the hall to my squadron, my sergeant major told me, he goes, selection's a continuous process. He goes, and you have to put out more than 100% every day. And when you can't do that, we don't have no need for you anymore, and it's absolutely true. And
somebody's on the door.
Okay. That's my daughter. Yeah. I'll get it later.
No, you're not.
I don't even know who that is. Don't they know I'm in an interview? And so anyways, and now my daughter goes and tells him, "Hey, my dad's coming." No, boo-boo. I'll get it later. So anyways, and that's like everything I do in life. It's a continuous process, and I've got to stay focused. And part of it's, we're not all the same. I just happen to be that kind of guy that I get bored really easy. And once I've done something, I'm like, I got it, done it. I'm looking around for what can I do next. And so I go for the next objective, and I need that to keep moving, and keep myself stimulated, keep myself alive, so to speak. And that's just who I am. It's my A-type personality, I guess. Others, they more the B-types are just happy and content with just, status quo. I've arrived here. I'm good with this. I don't want to do any more, and but I can't do that. It's just, it's like, it's like a racehorse, I mean, once they've got that taste and they know how to run, and they've been in a race, you watch a racehorse when he's walking out to the race field, man, he's prancing, he's ready to go. He knows what's coming. He lives for that, and it's the same thing with me. I've got to stay focused, and it's not easy. But it's that drive that I have that keeps me finding success, and success, I'm successful 1 out of 10 tries, nobody's successful very few people are successful the first time out. And you could be lucky the first time out, but really everything I've had to do, I've had to take multiple stabs at it to get it right. And, but I've never quit, and I never quit until I get what I want. So, what's the lesson learned there? You don't achieve anything in life. You don't get anything in life unless you work for it, and you really want it bad enough. So,
with a lot of that stuff that you've done then, because, I know we were going to talk somewhat about like the mindset and the visualization, because I know that's been key, obviously, within everything you've been doing. It's almost like the personality thinks that that's kind of, it's partially you're going to be born with it, but I also think it's something that it's a skill set. It's a discipline that can be learned just like any other discipline or habit. What's some advice you can give to guys or tips or girls that want to, obviously it's going to be mainly more guys here that want to go and pursue those paths, whether it's going in, to the Q course or going through selection or going to Delta Force, things like that, or anything they kind of want to do throughout their life, but we'll kind of use that as an example. What are some tips and advice that you can give them to kind of learn those skill sets and that organization and build that drive?
The first thing I would tell people is you got to think out of the box. We're like, and I was guilty of this too. We all buy into the same paradigms, and and what you got to do is be, you got to be a thinker, and you got to think out of the box, and realize that the sky really is the limit, and that you're not confined to a certain destiny, and that you got to know that you can. And you got to tell yourself, and you have to actually believe that you can do and be anything you want. And then you've got to set your goals. What do I really want to do in life? And can I see myself doing that? And then with that said, is develop a plan or a strategy to that end. Like when I decided I wanted to be a Delta operator, I knew, man, that was a really long shot for me. It was even extra long because I wasn't Special Forces, I wasn't a Ranger, and I was young. I had like a lot going against me. And, but I decided in my mind and my heart, that is what I want to be, and that is what I want to do. And so I came up with the plan. I said, okay, I've been through the pre-screening. I got selected for all that. So I get an opportunity to actually try out, go out there with the big boys and see if I can do this. And I focused. And I decided that it's not just a matter of going there. It's a matter of coming up with a cogent plan to meet the demands of the selection course. Even though I didn't know what the standards were or anything, I knew it was going to be rigorous. I knew physically it would be very hard, and I also knew mentally it would be very challenging. So I basically, the old saying, prior planning prevents piss poor performance, with that in mind, it's like, let me start planning ahead. How am I going to prepare myself physically, mentally for that? And I did, and I developed a plan, and actually it's on one of my webinars, my training plan to get ready for selection. And since that time, I've added stuff to it that I would do that would even make it even better today, as for terms of using supplements and things like that. But I had a plan, I had a vision, I had a goal, and those are the elements you need to do that. You can't. It's commitment. And what else can you do to develop yourself? Your whole life you should be a lifelong learner. A perpetual student. And so I'm always learning. I'm always reading or looking at self-help books, listening to self-help audio. I'm learning everything I can about me, and from that, I've learned so much that I know what my limitations are. I know what my strengths are. And I'm constantly, man, can I take just a second? I got a guy here beating on my door.
That's fine. That's fine. No problem.
Okay, give me two seconds.
Yeah, no problem. I don't have any elevator music for everybody.
I'm back. I'm sorry.
All right.
My mail. UPS guy sitting out there beating on the damn door. He knew I was in here because my daughter told him I was here. But anyways, yeah. Personal development, man. You got to go out and seek the information. Don't expect that when people tell you things that's the truth. We always go to other people for advice. And my first question is, when you ask a friend for advice, take a real hard look at him and go, okay, where's his information coming from? What experience does he has to give me that? Is that just his personal opinion? If it is, great. Take that with a grain of salt. But it's real easy to fall in the trap of looking at everybody else, listening to everybody else, and you get all this information, and probably half of it or most of it is skewed or wrong, because we perceive things, sometimes we perceive them wrong as well. So, from the early days on, I've always been very interested in developing myself to be the best I can be of myself. And, like I said earlier, listening to self-help video, listening to things about autogenic conditioning, which I already kind of learned on my own, things about, self-actualization, how to become who you want to be, creating your own reality, changing my mindset and getting out of the mindset that everybody else has imparted on me falsely, and I'll give you some examples what I mean by that. So here's a good example. I'm also a canine handler, canine trainer. Have been since I was a little kid. I've owned my own kennels. I've trained police dogs and things like that. I remember when I had my first dog, my mom would always tell me, don't let everybody pet your dog or be around your dog, otherwise he's going to be everybody else's dog, you know? And I'm like, okay. And so what ended up happening, I took that advice, and it was bad advice. And here's why it was bad advice, because now my dog, because he wasn't around other people, he was suspicious of other people. And because of his particular temperament, he wasn't a cowardly dog. He's a very aggressive dog. He was a strong dog. And so what I had now is a vicious dog that would bite people because he didn't understand people, because he wasn't around them, right? And it backfired. It was a bad analogy, but I didn't know. And of course, my mom didn't know either. She was passing on information which seemed logical to her, which was totally illogical. Now, as a successful canine handler, I happen to know that when you have a dog, you want to socialize him. You want to get him around people, you know, especially good people, right? Kids, everybody, because then at the end of the day, he's not suspicious of people, but then he becomes suspicious of that one person that is a bad person, right? And he knows that guy is not like all the other people I've met in my life. And now he becomes the dog you want him to be. He's more concerned about a potential threat. You know, we're talking about guard dogs, right? Yeah. So now I've got a sociable animal that can go out and play with other people and dogs and kids. Not to worry about him mauling people, but also know that he knows that guy ain't like the others.
Yeah.
And be alert, right? So it's a paradigm shift. And what I did is I bought into some skewed logic, right? And it actually almost could have cost me a lawsuit because my dog did bite some people. That was a long time ago. But now, you know, I've corrected because I went out and I did the work. I did the homework. I did the research and realized that's all wrong. And I can go on and on with a lot of these types of scenarios where we buy into this really false logic. Here's another good one. You know, I was always brought up to think that once you're over 35 or so, 40, you're definitely over the hill. It's all downhill. You're supposed to have a beer gut. You know, you're supposed to, you become the old man now, you know? And what I realized years ago was, again, that's a bunch of crap. You know, it doesn't have to be like that. And why does it not have to be like that? I did my research, you know, and I started doing some comparative analysis of other animals and things and stuff. And I realized, man, there is no reason for us to get old and fat and become these people that can't do anything. And so I changed my way of thinking. I changed my way of eating. I changed my way of exercising and living my life. And today I'm 51 years old and I'm probably in the best shape of my life, you know, and I feel like I'm 20 years old. You know, I'm not inhibited from doing anything. I mean, Christ, I can work as a bodyguard, you know, and
a new, what degree was that for your new black belt?
Oh, I just got a 6th-degree black belt, yeah, for American Karate, and also for American Extension Karate. So with a 1st-degree black belt in American Jiu-Jitsu. So you know, it's a process, right? I'm continuing to grow, and even with that in that system now, you know, I'm going to continue to work with my with my mentors in the chain, and continue to develop the system and integrate my experiences that I've learned and continue to grow that system. So I'm always active. I'm always doing things and staying involved and committed and to who I am. You know, I am a martial artist. I am a professional fighter. I was and am a professional soldier. I am a bodybuilder. I am all these things, and I don't, you know, and I still live it and do it and exemplify it. So, you know, again, at the end of the day, man, you got to break paradigms. You got to think outside the box, and you got to constantly try to improve yourself, improve your mind, improve your body. You know, you can't discount either one of those. You know, the guy, what's his name, Dave from Wendy's, the guy, the owner from Wendy's that died, right?
Yeah.
I remember one time he said, I don't need, you know, we're talking about, you know, fat in the body, you know, in the hamburgers and blah, blah, house for your body. He goes, didn't concern him. He goes, my body's only used to carry my brain. You know, but it killed him, right? He died from being overweight, blah, blah, blah. You know, your body is your vessel, man. Yeah, and you got to take care of that. It does carry your brain, but, you know, it's the vehicle, man. And so it's one system, you know, you got to take care of both. You can't discount them. So, you know, and that's what people fail, you know, and again, they limit themselves because they have certain expectations that have been imparted on them. They think that, okay, I can only do this, or I can only be, you know, that, or I can only focus on this, you know, and I can't do this and that. And I say the hell with all that. You can do and be in anything you want to be. You can do it all. You just got to do it. And that's who I am. And that's what I do.
Yeah, I like it. It's you're proof of it. It's not like you just say it and it's like, well, what has he done? It's like you pretty much, what have you not done, almost in a way, when people are going to say that. So with a lot of that then, because again, we get a lot of guys that are wanting to follow in those kinds of footsteps, or they just want to be, they're civilian, but they want to train that way. They want to become physically stronger, mentally stronger. And, I'm into a lot of the same things, the visualization and always self-improvement, things like that. What are a lot of things that you or some of the things that you did that really helped you with the visualization? Because I know that when I read it in your book, that started when you were a young kid, and then playing in everything you've done, going in, making selection, making it to the unit with the physical training and the mental training aspect of that. Because that's big on what we're doing here and what we try and do, because you need that. You can have all your heart in it, but as you said, it's physically and mentally demanding, so you still have to be prepared. Whether you really want to do it or not, if you're not prepared, you're not going to make it.
Yeah. The visualization, basically you have to visualize where you want to be, and you have to see it, feel it, and experience it in your mind, in the here and now, right? So it's not enough to say, well, I want to do this, I want to be that, I'm going to do this. What you have to tell yourself in your mind is, I'm doing it, I'm experiencing it, I am this. All right. And you see yourself actually doing it, and you see the end state, like selection. Failure was not an option for me. I knew in my mind, I saw myself every day running faster than everybody else, carrying more weight, doing everything better and faster. I saw myself navigating spot on every time, not missing a beat. You actually have to see it in your mind's eye. And that's regardless of what you do in life. And again, what's key here is you have to see it in the here and now, as if you're actually doing it, right? It's not, for example, you don't tell yourself, I want to be rich one day, I'm going to be rich. You say, I am rich. Even though you're not, I am rich. I make $10 million a day or $10 million a year, right? That's what you have to say. And because what happens is there's two elements that work. There's your conscious working and your subconscious. Your subconscious is doing all the work. Right? Your conscious says, I make $1 million a year. Your subconscious goes, we make $1 million a year, but it's trying to figure out, how am I making $1 million a year? And it starts working to that end. It's the craziest thing, right? For the most people that are closed-minded, it doesn't make any sense. And then I would ask those people, what have you done? And try it before you discount it. It works. And I'll give you a good example. So before I retired out of the Army, I took my ex-wife, and my 3 kids to Washington, D.C. I wanted to go to the Kennedy Center and show them a play, right? Because I've been there before. I thought it was really cool. And I said, man, we really need to bring my family there. So we show up one night, and we get there, and the tickets were like $150 a person to get in. And I'm like, man, I can't afford that. I have to go rob a daggone 7-Eleven, I'm a master sergeant in the Army with, 3 kids and a wife and in debt on a master sergeant pay. And so I looked at my family, disappointedly. I had to tell them, hey, we can't do it, kids, guys, I'm sorry, and I felt really bad about that. I was like, man, they were really looking forward to it. I was looking forward to it. And because I couldn't afford it, I felt really horrible. So I still remember that night, getting in the car and driving away, and thinking to myself, that'll never happen again. That will never happen again. And at that time, I told myself, I started thinking, what would make me happy? What would solve a lot of these problems? Well, of course, money would, but how much money? And so in my mind, I just randomly said, you know what, $250,000. I wish I had $250,000, a year, be good. And so that's why I started telling myself, I make $250,000 a year. Within 1 year, I was making over $250,000 a year, because my subconscious started working to that end. Of course, consciously, I was doing things as well, but subconsciously, my brain was aligning things and moving things and making me make decisions, giving me information that would give me good decisions to move me in that direction. And I found that
pathways that you kind of didn't see before, really.
That's right. And it does work. And, and like I said, there's the doubting Thomases out there. Well, you keep on doubting me, and you'll live in the world that you live in, that you've created, and I'm living in the world that I create. And I can tell you, this is an integral part of my world, is that mindset. And this whole idea about, how the conscious and subconscious works, and the whole process of we call self-actualization. Ultimately it comes back to everything. It comes back to your mindset. The mind will carry you through. You got to visualize it. You got to see it in the here and now. You got to believe it, and you got to want it. And there was no doubt in my mind I would pass selection. I didn't care what the odds were. They were really stacked against me. I can tell you this, out of over 100 guys that tried out in that course, 6 of us finished, 3 of us got selected. The other 2 guys were both E7s with a lot of experience, Green Berets, Rangers, and I'm the 22-year-old kid, 23-year-old kid sitting there, with no experience that pulled it off. And all the other guys that got canned were Green Berets and Rangers and others, with a lot more experience. And I made it. And I made it because this right here, I told myself I'm going to make it, and I trained and planned for it, and I saw it as a reality, and it became so. So that's how it works, I mean, there's a lot of stuff out there on it, you can look it up, autogenic conditioning, visualization, how it works, meditation, but it's all kind of in the same realm.
And with that too, is it's such, like I've always told people, you can have the physical aspect, but the mindset is kind of what really ties it into everything. Because I'm sure you saw guys that were just, beasts, but maybe they just didn't have the mental part of it. They came in, they wanted to do it, but they weren't visualizing. They didn't see themselves there. They didn't have that mindset preparation to make it through everything, where they might have physically been able to do it, but their mind quit on it, and so they didn't make it.
And that's exactly what happens. It's the mind gives out, because the whole, like the selection courses, and most of them, it really is to break down the mind. What they do is they break down your mind by breaking down your body first, and then your mind goes. And so, in fact, I was talking to my instructor the other day when I was getting my 6th-degree black belt, and we were laughing because I can remember every time I had a fight, in and out of the ring, but especially in the ring, as a fighter, the guy might have actually been better than me, had better skill sets, more experience. But I knew that as long as I can keep from getting knocked out or choked out, that I will beat him ultimately, because my mind is stronger than him. My body will continue to go even when it can't go, because my mind will tell it to do so. And eventually his body will wear down and his mind will quit. And I win a lot of fights just because the other guy mentally quit, Yeah, I took a beating, but at the end of the day, he quit, I won, And that's what it really comes down to, is the mind,
Yeah, it's like you're saying, the body, as you said earlier, the body's there to carry the mind. It's there to a lot more, but the mind still is the center, the controlling part of all of this, and that's why I tell a lot of people when I come with them, I'm like, hey, you know what, I can train you do all this, but sometimes there's stuff within that training that might not make sense, or it seems kind of weird, but it's more the mental aspect to do these things, have you do just some weird stuff, or as you've seen within the military, the stupidest shit that you have to do, that they make you do just to kind of piss you off, to screw you up, and you're like, oh, you don't know what's going on, and it gets you frustrated, and it's there to just break your mind down, and then, breaking your body down on top of it, keeping you awake, doing that's the whole point of all of it. And that's what I try and tell people, that's what you got to prepare for. You have to, the mind is the key to it. You can't have one over the other. You can't have just the mindset. You still have to be physically prepared, but you can physically prepare yourself all you want, but if the mind's not there, it's not going to matter.
That's right. The mind is center. It controls all the executive functions, all physical, mental, everything. So
yeah,
you don't have the right mindset, you're not going to achieve anything. Of course, having a good mindset, you can have the best mindset in the world, but if you don't have any skill sets, or a plan, you're not going to execute either, right? You can will it all you want, but it's a compromise between, like, for example, fighting, or even like the selection process. I'll use that one again. I knew that I wanted to complete it, never done it before, didn't know what I was going to go up against, didn't know what they're going to throw at me. So I told myself that physically I'll be ready for anything. And I'll be in the best shape of my life. And I trained like I was going to the Olympics. Man, I was in the best shape of my life, crazy shape of my life. And so I knew physically there was nothing they could do to me, nothing they could throw at me that I could not handle, nothing. And so I had the physical down. Now I just had to make sure my mind was prepared for anything that came at me. And no matter how hard it got, the mind didn't quit, because the body was going to keep going. It was built, and I designed it and created it so that it could survive. And that's like anything you do, you got to have the skill sets. Like, for example, if I'm going to be a professional boxer and I don't have I've never boxed before in my life, and I could say, but I'm going to be a professional boxer, I'm going to win. You can have all the courage you want, and all the positive mindset you want, but if you don't have the skill sets to back it up, you're going to lose, right? And so you've got to have the skill sets too, along with the mindset, the wherewithal and to support what you want to do. So it's not just mindset. It is mindset at the end of the day, but ultimately you got to have the other stuff to support it, whatever it is you're doing in life. If you want to get an A in school, you actually got to study. You actually got to study. You can say, I'm going to get an A, but you didn't study. Of course you didn't get an A, You got to do the work.
Just magically think of, I'm going to get selected and have the mindset and visualize it and not prepare for it and actually have a plan. You're not just magically going to get there with the mindset.
Right. But the mind is the first thing that always goes when everything gets hard, and it'll quit before your body does. And when your body does quit before your mind's strong enough to keep your body going.
Yeah.
It really is. When I was doing Stars and Stripes, the one episode where we did the beach landing, jumped out of the helicopter and ran through the mud, and I had to pull Terry Crews and all that kind of stuff. I can tell you, I've never been so tired in my life. And I really did not know how I was going to make it the rest of the way through, especially after trying to tow Terry through the water and get myself in the boat and then go through that mud. I was spent. And I was breathing so hard. I could hear a heartbeat in my ears. And I really thought, man, I was breathing so hard that I'm going to kill myself. I really expected I'm going to die of a heart attack. And, but my mind and my body didn't want to go. It did not want to go anymore, especially in the mud when I was stuck. I just could not garner the strength to pull myself out of there. But I knew mentally, I said, man, you have got to do this. One, everybody's watching. Two, everybody has certain expectations of you. And three, I have certain expectations of myself. And because of my mindset and my experience, I was like, I can do this. And man, I did it, and I did it, and I did it. And I made it, But I can tell you that I was right on the edge of probably death, probably the closest I've ever pushed myself physically to where, man, I am going to die. And it was not, I was not just saying that. I actually believed I might just blow a gasket here in a minute and die, And in fact, when it was all over, the medics looked at me right away and go, come here. And they go, we know you're not going to quit. We know you don't want to quit, and we're not doing it, but we just want to, look at you real quick and do something for you, And they basically conned me into putting oxygen on me because my oxygen saturation was so low, I was getting hypoxic. And I was changing colors, but I wasn't going to quit, but they actually made me strip down, laid me down on the beach, put me on O2 for 30 minutes, and started working on me, to get me back to, a normal, homeostatic level. And, but that was the mindset that was going to keep me going. And even though this wasn't combat, it was a matter of pride for me, of who I am and what I think of myself. There was no way I was going to throw in the towel. Okay, no, I was going to die, or somebody's going to grab me and stop me and take care of me, but I wasn't going to quit.
Stop is the only option.
Yeah, exactly. And nobody knows that because that was obviously not filmed. But, that's an example of, my body had zero left in the gas tank, zero. And
because you couldn't tell. I remember watching the show when that was the last time when I was in Iraq, and I watched it. I was watching it on TV. I was like, oh, okay, watching it, but it's the whole production value. Like, oh, that looked hard, but it didn't nearly look as like all the stuff that they didn't show. And then afterwards, of course, they didn't show.
Yeah, it was very hard. It was very challenging. I'm not even gonna lie to you. It was and it was because of some of the circumstances that made it harder for me, like trying to tow Terry Crews.
Yeah.
I spent a lot of energy trying to keep him afloat, and he almost drowned on me. I mean, he was drowning, he was going down. I'm trying to hold him up. And they edited a lot of this stuff, but this whole thing lasted about 30 minutes. This whole event, from beginning, they didn't stop it. I mean, it kept going. So even though it was edited for television, it was a 30-minute rule-a-thon for me, And I'm telling you, at the very end, I thought, man, at my age, I don't know if I'm going to survive this one, And I thought, wouldn't that be irony? I'd die out here on the Hollywood set with my combat gear on,
Yeah, so, instead of all the stuff that you've got.
Yeah, exactly. So.
Well, that's great. And I think that's a lot. A lot of people that I've talked to are guys that are going to run across this. I think it's going to really, really help them on what they need to do to prepare. Because I think a lot of people think physically, you know, I got guys, you know, that are getting ready to go through the special force selection, or guys that are going in that are in that whole process of, you know, the basic and then all the way airborne and then selection stuff. They're getting prepared physically, and then I'm trying to challenge them mentally, but also hearing it, you know, from somebody like you, of everything you've done is great for them, of like, okay, you know what, I need to start reading. We need to start studying. I need to start training my brain outside of the physical mental challenges as well, but setting everything up, because it is outside of the gym. You know, the things that you did weren't just when you were on the unit, when you guys were training, they were outside. Or the things when you're in the gym, like it's outside. It's continual progress. It's not just right then and there that you do it when you're doing the physical aspect of it. You know, there's everything else setting up to, like you said, the eating, the supplementation. Like there's a lot more to it, not just an hour here, or let me go to the range and go shoot for an hour. You know, there's the dry firing, the practice drills, like all the stuff. It's the visualization. It's all part of it. And it's a whole. If that's what you really want to do, a big goal, it's 100% of your time. That's what you're doing every single day, not just, oh, I'm going to do an hour a day of that.
That's right. That's right. That's it's a holistic approach, man. Mind and body, you know.
Yeah.
And you gotta have that will. You gotta have the goals. You gotta have a plan.
Yeah.
So it all comes together.
Awesome. So, all right. Well, we'll cut it here. I don't want to keep too much of your time. Again, I appreciate it. Anybody that wants to check out your book, I know you can get it on Amazon. They can go buy it. I know I just saw you had that new visual logo come up for the DaleComstock.com.
Yeah.
So I'm guessing you guys are doing some new stuff with the site there. So would that be the best place for people to kind of find you, more info, everything you're doing, the shooting courses, what you're doing, everything, the book?
Yeah, I'm actually gonna exactly. You go to my website www.dalecomstock.com, and I'm gonna start updating it with more information about exactly shooting seminars, things like that. Ultimately, you can go to SOCON, SOCON. Right now, they have a Facebook page. They're going to have a website, and everything will be ready to go by September 10th. And you can actually go there for a lot more information on events that I'm involved in, that I'm endorsing, gear, you know, stuff like that. And then as far as my book, it's available on Amazon.com and Barnes & Noble, basically American Badass. So you can purchase it through there as well, in Kindle, paperback, or hardback versions. And but if you just want to learn more about me or whatever, you can always go to my website, or you can come to my fan pages or my personal Facebook page as well. And there's a lot of different ways you can access me.
And that's SOCON.com then?
Right now it's a SOCON, it's SOCON, it's on the Facebook page.
Okay. I'll put links below too for everything.
Yeah, but eventually it'll be, if it's not already, it'll become a website. It's actually got a large fan base already, and it'll actually eventually be a paid membership site for some of the stuff that's on there. But it'll be highlighting myself and actually Max Mullen and another Delta guy named Jim Lewis. We're all kind of friends, and we actually filmed Zulu 6 together. So that's how all this stuff has been kind of evolving. So.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, and I'll put links on there for everybody. And, you know, again, I appreciate you taking the time. Obviously, you're extremely busy. So that's awesome. And, you know, thanks to you and also your wife. She's always been great. She's kind of the one that I know I reached out to her, and then she kind of reached me out to you. So that was perfect.
Awesome. Yeah, very cool. Well, thanks for having me.
All right. Thanks a lot, Dale. And enjoy the rest of your day with the family.
All right, brother. Appreciate it. Thanks, sir.
I'll talk to you soon. Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye.